Most people were picking this series in 4 for G2 at best, but it ended up being, as I said, an insane 5-game set, 50-minute game 5, and I think Splyce looked a lot better than people were expecting.
Splyce looked really good, and for a team that doesn't have a coach, their pick ban was okay, pretty good most of the time. Game 2
okay to pretty good.
Game 2 was a bad pick and ban, but still, for a team that is coachless, to put together these compositions and this gameplay was very impressive, and they went Game 5 against the Kings of Europe.
Yeah, and I think in that Game 1, it kind of showcased the power of their team comp. Just, I mean, got some clips of it, just how unstoppable this Bash Brother trio that they had of Kummel, Jarvan, and the Galio mid. As an AD, there's pretty much nothing you could do.
No, there's absolutely nothing you can do. The key here is the Morgana, because without the spell shield on this Camille, he's just going to get Tristana ulted right out of the situation.
Right.
So that spell shield right here, you put your ulti on the Tristana, the jump just cancels,
you know.
And then Galio comes flying and knocks up. Sven is absolutely destroyed. But hold on, gets the Lantern, looks like everything's okay.
Yeah.
He resets.
But instantly taunted out of that Lantern.
Right, he's taunted out of the Lantern, and then Trashy kept his ultimate on Jarvan. Sven flashes, that looks like he's good. Nope, Jarvan follows him, Galio follows him. The focus is spectacular from Splyce, and this cheese strat is what G2 kind of referred to it as after the game. Really just turned the tides, because they were losing in this game for a while until they figured out, hey, this combo is disgusting, and if we just kill Sven, we win the game.
I don't know how that's cheese. I mean, that's just a super CC.
I think he was a little salty.
He's a little salty there, but I don't know what you're supposed to do if you're Sven in that situation. No. You saw him use all his cooldowns. I guess you just save your rocket jump because you know it's going to get interrupted, but like you're still dead instantly there anyways, and I don't think, even if he flashes out and then jumps, they're all blowing their flashes on you anyways. And that happened a couple times in that game where if you're Sven, you're just like, okay, I guess I'm dead. Dead twice with my GA. It's tough to counter that.
Yeah, I mean, I think he played that pretty well. If that was me, I would have died very quickly. Even with the Lantern helping get out of there, just spectacular. But yeah, that combination helped Splyce win Game 1. It was the reason they won Game 1. And it was all back to champ select. But it took them a while to figure it out and iron out that strategy. A couple of times, Camille would be too far away from Morgana and it just wouldn't work, because Tristana would just ult you out of the Camille ulti. But after that, man, they figured it out, took Game 1, and then they looked pretty decent the rest of the way. They were always close. I think they won the early game in like every single contest.
Yeah, I don't think any of these games in this series were really stomps either direction. So again, that's just way more than people were expecting. But again, G2, domestically at least, just known for coming up in these big games. And I think as soon as it gets to that Game 5, people are still kind of like, okay, at some point G2 is going to turn it on and, you know, take this game. But Game 5, it took a while.
It did take a while.
All the way to 50 minutes. And
another crazy game.
That was way back and forth, as we mentioned, delaying the NALCS game from starting. But it basically came down to the final team fight in the game in that one.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is what you want to expect, what you want to see in a Game 5. But from that last team fight, what I really want to highlight is just the play of Mithy on Alistair. He had a kind of up and down series, but in this last team fight here, he just completely tilts Senkux. I felt tilted watching this.
This is insane support play from Mithy. They absolutely back Splyce off the Baron, and then right there he headbutts Wonder away so he can't get a full good ulti. And then the entire team fight,
he just follows Senkux.
Zoning Senkux around. Pushes him back, and then uses the blast cone to get him away again, and then flashes over and pulverizes him. Senkux can't get an ulti off until way later in this, and then as soon as his team is wiped, he gets headbutt into the rest of them.
Gets smacked in. He gets his ult off, but it doesn't do a whole lot in that fight. The fight's already lost. I would love to see the reaction cam of Senkux that whole time, because I would be smashing my keyboard.
That play is single-handedly winning that fight, because if Orianna can get a good ulti off in any situation, the whole team fight can go differently. That's one of the best team fighting champs in the game. You get a good shockwave, and who knows? Splyce could have won that game. But they had chances earlier to really lock it down, but that game really came down to Mithy. His Alistar play was perfect in that team fight.
Yeah, and I said earlier, he had some not so great plays earlier in that series, but when it mattered most, yeah, he came up with that huge play and just played it perfectly. I don't know what Senkux could have done differently. Maybe flashed in front of the blast cone so he gets knocked over earlier. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough situation. There's really not much you can do. One thing to highlight in this series was that, going back to picks and bans, the team that had Jarvan in every game won. And going into Game 5, if you're Splyce and G2 has the first pick, I think you got to ban Jarvan away because it was a game changer in this series. For whatever reason, some series you don't see Jarvan picked or banned or whatever, but in this one it was crucial to engages, whether it was on Expect, whether it was on Trashy. It really was a champion that turned the tides.
Yeah, and I think that's something about adapting to a particular series, because maybe coming into this set, they weren't expecting Jarvan to be such a high priority pick. But when you see the impact he's having on each and every game, I think, yeah, it's got to change in your game plan, and that's something you've got to talk about in between games and maybe adjust how you're banning things. But the one pick and ban thing that stood out for me this whole weekend in the playoffs is 16 of the 17 games in the EU and NALCS, Tristana was picked or banned. One game, she wasn't. And that one game was CLG Envy and Stixay played Jinx. Probably should have played Tristana anyway. So it should have been 17 out of 17.
Yeah, it definitely should have. Triss is a power pick.
Yeah.
She's not great in lane, but man, if you get to late, the damage is absurd, and then the ability to reset and reposition is the best right now, especially when there's tanks trying to dive on you. To be able to just move back, rocket jump away, ult away people, it's invaluable. So yeah, Tristana is definitely one of the top tier AD carries, especially when there's so many being banned right now, like the Callista as well.
Yeah, and I mean, she's a great split pusher, great sieger. She absolutely destroys turrets. There's not a whole lot of downside to Tristana right
Just the early game.
Yeah.
Just the farming under turret is very tilting when you have the E on.
Yes, that's painful.
Yes, it is.
I mean, Double have said a while ago you should be able to toggle the explosive stuff on and off, which would be interesting.
That would make her even better, yes.
Yeah, but no, that's no fun. Riot likes to see you suffer with your CSing under turret.
It's awful.
Yes.